Have you ever asked yourself this? Why do some people grasp a new skill the moment they see it, apply it within seconds, and progress as if nothing is difficult, while you spend hours, days, sometimes even weeks on the exact same thing? Why do some brains connect ideas as if they've caught fire, while you, no matter how hard you try, wander through a foggy maze inside your own mind? This question had been the unanswered center of Alex's life for years. Alex was an ordinary person, an ordinary job, ordinary responsibilities, an ordinary resume. But something was far worse than being ordinary, constantly failing at learning. Nothing worked. He got stuck trying to learn a new software. He lost hours preparing a simple presentation. No matter how many times he practiced a skill, it just wouldn't stick. He had begun labeling himself as a slow learner, someone who falls behind, someone who is always late. One day at the office, when he saw an intern at the next desk solve a complex task within minutes, something snapped inside Alex. How? He whispered to himself. How do they understand so fast? What am I doing wrong? That night, when he returned home, Alex's mind wouldn't quiet. He began researching articles, books, interviews, documentaries. He tried to understand how the brain learns, but the information was either too theoretical or impossible to apply in practice. But when one concept appeared on his screen in the late hours of the night, it struck Alex's mind like lightning. Shuhari, an ancient Japanese mastery system, a mysterious journey spanning from martial arts to tea ceremonies, from calligraphy to modern software development learning methods. Shuhari consisted of 3 stages: Shu, Ha, Ri. But Alex still didn't understand what they truly meant. He stared at the screen. One thought echoed in his head. If people have mastered skills for centuries through this system, maybe I can finally master learning too. A spark ignited inside him. It felt as if the door he had been searching for all these years had finally appeared. But he didn't know what lay behind it. He only knew one thing. Who he was now would not be his final form. And at that moment, he made a decision. He would rediscover learning from the beginning. He would choose not just to understand how his brain worked, but to experience how it accelerated. An ancient path, a modern life. That is how Alex took the first step of his new beginning. But he knew nothing yet. The 3 stages of Shuhari were still hidden in darkness. The only thing he knew was that this system could give him something he'd been unable to reach for years. The secret to learning 10 times faster. And maybe that is exactly what you've been searching for all along. Do you know why? Because no one ever told you this truth. Learning speed is not innate. It is built with the right system. When Alex stepped through the door of Shuhari for the first time, the only instruction given to him was, Shu, first, surrender to the rules. This sentence felt both childish and like a profound challenge, because Alex had spent his entire life searching for shortcuts to learn faster. He sped up videos, skimmed summaries, skipped practice, and ignored the basics. But the Shu stage demanded the exact opposite, returning to the most fundamental knowledge, with the simplest repetitions, through pure discipline. On the first day, the task given to Alex was unbelievably ordinary. No matter what skill he wanted to learn, software, a sport technique, presentation ability, memory skills, he would begin by repeating a single basic movement 100 times. That was it. Just 100 repetitions. But each repetition had to be done with total attention. When Alex first tried this task, he got frustrated. How is something this simple supposed to make me faster? He muttered. This is child's play. Shouldn't I be struggling more? In that moment, an inner voice appeared in his mind. The hard part isn't progressing. The hard part is silencing your ego. As he did the first repetitions, he noticed his mind drifting. At repetition 15, his thoughts went back to work. At 22, he wanted to check his phone. At 33, he felt bored. But around repetition 50, he sensed a shift. The movement was becoming easier. His brain seemed to form connections faster. The same action was happening more accurately with less effort. Deep down, he knew this wasn't a coincidence. Science explained it. Neural pathways thicken with repetition. When a movement, piece of information, or concept is repeated enough, the brain builds a protective layer called myelin around that pathway. Myelin increases the speed of the signal. In other words, repetition physically reshapes the brain. What turns a slow learner into a fast one is not an inborn talent, but this biological construction. When Alex read this truth, he paused. A thought hit him. So what I thought I couldn't learn all these years was actually because I never repeated things in a way the brain could learn them. In the Shu stage, every day began with the same ritual: basic movement, repetition, attention, reinforcement. One day he worked on improving his memory. He chose 5 words. For 20 minutes, he paired each word with a visual image. Then he repeated them. When he revisited the same words in short sessions throughout the day, he found the next day that they all remained in his mind. Another day, he was learning a new software tool. His instructor made him memorize a single command. He applied that command 50 times, then 50 times more. By the end of the day, he could type it without thinking. A new realization started forming in Alex's mind. I wasn't struggling because I was slow. I was struggling because I was scattered. During the Shu stage, his master repeated one sentence to him: "True speed is born from simplicity." At first, Alex didn't understand, but a few days later, he noticed that fast learners often begin with less, but hammer that less into their minds like a nail. They perfect the basics. That foundation then becomes a strong skeleton capable of supporting complex structures. Alex began to feel the effects of Shu in his daily life. During a meeting presentation, accessing information became easier. Phone numbers stuck in his mind. When exercising, movements felt more precise. It was as if an invisible engine had started running in the back of his brain, accelerating his learning. But there was another layer to Shu: breaking the ego. One day his master asked him, "Can you learn without relying on your own knowledge?" Alex paused. He didn't know the answer. The master continued, "Shu requires the courage to admit what you don't know. Intelligence cannot be built without surrendering to the rules." This sentence shook Alex, because all his life he had avoided the basics. While trying to speed up learning, he had unknowingly slowed himself down. From that day on, he surrendered to Shu. He saw basic repetition not as humiliating, but as an honorable discipline. Each repetition was a new layer of myelin woven into his brain. Every simple piece of knowledge was a building block of future mastery. The Shu period lasted for weeks. At times he was bored, at times he struggled, but each day he felt his mind becoming a little clearer. Learning no longer felt as heavy as before, because his brain had become faster along its foundational pathways. Alex finally understood what the Shu stage truly meant. There is no freedom without knowing the rules. Laying the foundation is the first secret of mastery. After the disciplined repetitions of Shu, Alex reached an unexpected threshold. He could now perform the basic movements without thinking. Information entered his mind more quickly, memorization became more permanent, and practice felt more fluid. But at that very point, his master quietly said to him, "Now it's time to break the rules." These words excited Alex as much as they frightened him, because until now, he had always searched for the correct path within the lines drawn for him. Holding on to authority, instructions, and teachers had always felt safe, but the hostage commanded the exact opposite: carve your own path with what you've learned. Now Alex had a new mission before him: creative adaptation. On the first day, his master said, "Shu has filled you. Ha will set you free." Alex asked in confusion, "But breaking the rules, wouldn't that be wrong?" His master shook his head. "Not wrong, necessary. Because learning, after a certain point, isn't just storing information, it's shaping it." These words echoed inside Alex's mind. From that day on, the Ha stage officially began. Alex struggled during his first attempt. For example, he had to combine the software commands he had just learned to create a faster method. The basic rules showed him a path, but the Ha stage demanded more: flexibility. He had to find a new strategy formed from his own mistakes. In the first few attempts, he made mistake after mistake. Commands failed, outputs were wrong, codes conflicted. But with each error, something in his mind began to shift. This is where science came in, the brain's power of adaptation, known as neuroplasticity. The brain grows not only through correct repetitions, but also through incorrect attempts. Making mistakes activates different regions of the brain. Sometimes the wrong path is the fastest key to finding the right one. When Alex realized this, one thought crossed his mind. So the problem wasn't the mistakes. The problem was that I avoided them. One day his master gave him a small task. Find 3 different ways to achieve the same result. Alex froze for a moment, unsure of what to do, because he had always assumed there was only one correct way. But as he experimented, he discovered something. One piece of knowledge can be processed through different routes. A skill can become a rhythm unique to the individual. A technique can be reborn through personal intuition. This was the spirit of Ha, constructing your own intelligence. Over time, Alex realized that every human brain has its own set of strengths. Some learn better visually, others by doing, others by hearing. He began to discover his own learning rhythm. He grasped complex information faster through visual maps. When he turned difficult concepts into personal stories, they became more permanent, and instead of breaking steps apart, merging them felt more natural to him. The repetitions of Shu had given him foundational speed. The experiments of Ha were giving him personal speed. Change began to appear in his daily life as well. Now, when preparing a presentation, he wasn't just following rules. He was building creative structures. When learning a new skill, he discovered methods different from others. People began asking him, "How did you think of that?" A new inner monologue began forming in Alex's mind. "I'm no longer just someone who learns. I'm someone who shapes learning." The Ha stage taught him another truth. Knowledge is not a solid stone. It is like flowing water. It takes the shape you give it. One day, Alex stood before his master and said, "I have broken the rules. I found my own way, but something still feels missing." His master smiled. "Of course it is missing, because Ha is only a gateway. True freedom begins in Re." Alex took a deep breath. Inside him stirred a mix of excitement, fear, and hope, because the Ha stage had taught him how to think. But in the Re stage, he would have to master things without thinking. Shu was being filled with knowledge. Ha was breaking knowledge, and Re was becoming free from knowledge. Alex slowly lifted his head and whispered to himself, "Those who can break the rules build their own intelligence." After leaving behind the discipline of Shu and the freedom of Ha, the new space Alex's master brought him into was completely silent. There were no instructions, no rules, no explanations. Only one sentence echoed. "Rai, now you must be able to do everything without thinking." These words settled on Alex's shoulders like an invisible weight, because doing something without thinking was actually the hardest part. In Shu, you had to think. In Ha, you had to question. But in Re, you had to move beyond thought itself. At first, Alex felt confused. How will I do things correctly without thinking? How will I be intuitive? What if I make mistakes? These questions were the mind's resistance. His master approached him and said calmly, "The mind slows down while learning information. It speeds up when it forgets." Alex couldn't understand this. The master continued, "Re is remembering by forgetting. You will no longer think about the rules consciously. Your body and mind will handle them for you. You will simply flow." These words opened a door inside Alex. In Shu, he had built the foundation. In Ha, he had created his own methods. Now it was time to merge that foundation and creativity into a single whole. The next day, the master gave Alex a new task. A complex problem was presented, multi-step, multi-layered, requiring analysis. In Shu, he would have looked at the rules. In Ha, he would have tried different ways. But now nothing was said. Alex had to trust his instincts. Alex closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. The knowledge in his mind began rising to the surface one by one. Basic commands, rules, patterns he had learned, scenarios he remembered. But he wasn't consciously thinking about any of it. The information flowed by itself. He placed his hands on the keyboard and began typing the commands. He was fast, but the speed came not from panic, but from flow. Progress bars moved across the screen. Alex was neither half thinking nor fully thinking. He was simply acting. His master watched him quietly. "This is how Re begins," he murmured. Within minutes, Alex completed the task. Normally, it would have taken hours, but he didn't feel like he was perceiving time. Time had flowed within him, and he had shaped himself with it. In that moment, an awareness burst inside Alex. "I am no longer learning. I am executing." With this realization, a clarity formed in his mind. He could now simplify complex information. When he saw a new skill, he could sense its structure without examining its foundation. When preparing a presentation, creative ideas flowed effortlessly. When coworkers described a project, Alex saw the solution before they finished speaking. People began to ask him, "How did you do this so fast?" Alex's answer was now clear. Speed comes not from thinking, but from perceiving. His mind had strengthened through Shu's repetitions. It had expanded through Ha's flexibility. Now it had been liberated in Re's inner stillness. Science supported this as well. In brain scans of experts, it was seen that masters use less energy in the motor and cognitive regions, because neural pathways refined over years transfer signals so efficiently that effort nearly disappears in the master's brain. This is called automaticity. But Re is not only biological speed, it is also spiritual clarity. Alex was no longer just a fast learner. He had become someone who could instantly apply what he learned, someone who shaped knowledge intuitively. This showed in daily life too. In meetings, he could decode complex presentations at a glance. Learning a new skill took hours, not days. People sought his advice, followed his ideas, wanted him to lead, because Re created not just competence, but gravity. One day his master approached him and spoke to him for the last time. "You now carry Shuhari. Shu trained you. Ha freed you. Re has made you invisible." Alex was surprised. "Invisible?" "Yes," the master said. "Because masters are invisible. Those around you cannot see how you do it. It looks like magic to them, but it is not magic. It is the path of Shuhari." Alex took a deep breath. He no longer saw himself as the old Alex. Learning was no longer effort, no longer a burden, no longer stress. Learning had become his nature. Shuhari was not just a system. It was a journey that reshaped Alex's mind. When the simplicity of foundation, the freedom of creativity, and the intuition of mastery unite, what emerges is this: a new mind, a new speed, a new self. And now there was only one answer to the question everyone kept asking. How is this possible? Alex smiled. Learning is no longer an effort, it's a way of life.